Good evening, folks. Red County Blue Nation, Stephen Rorick, Jim McMahon. Our guest tonight is the Custer County Republican Central Committee Chair, Jack Canterbury. Jack, how are you this evening?
I'm great.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Jack.
Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, it's our pleasure. So I guess we'll get started off here. Jack, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, if you would.
I'm a Colorado native. Been voting Republican since I've been voting. I moved to Custer County 25 years ago, married a native of Custer County. She grew up Custer and Fremont County. We've been here 25 years, have a successful real estate business. 6 years ago, I started getting curious and interested in how the Republican Party functioned and how it worked. I really didn't understand how the process worked. I got discouraged. I went to my first caucus, and when I walked in, I was handed a sheet of paper telling me who to vote for. And nobody has ever told me who to vote for. So that didn't strike me real good. So it made me curious about how the whole process worked. And that, unfortunately or fortunately, is part of how the process works. But I started going to the Central Committee meetings, and I didn't particularly care for the way our Central Committee was operating. They weren't very involved. They weren't active. They didn't seem to be doing anything to me to promote the Republican Party. So I decided, rather than be a person that just sits back and complains and walks away, I said, well, if I want it to be different, the only way to make it different is to get involved. So 4 years ago, I ran to be the Custer County Republican chair, and I was elected that position. Then the learning curve really started because I had absolutely no idea what the chairman was supposed to do. And I didn't get any help from any of the other people because they had never really done it properly either. So I started reaching out to other counties, other chairmen, the state party, started really getting involved, and found out that the Republican Central Committee in every county actually has quite a bit of power that I didn't understand. The Republican Party actually submits a list of people to be election judges and poll watchers to the county clerk. The county clerk doesn't get to determine those. Those are determined by the Democrat chairperson and the Republican chairperson, which is done through caucus. So that is something that a lot of people don't understand and why they need to get involved in the Republican Party, because if we want to be involved in our elections and make sure they operate properly, we need to be involved in the Republican Party and the Central Committee. So after a couple of years, I enjoyed it, but the writing was on the wall that with our Central Committee, we had the majority of the group didn't seem to be, for lack of another word, enamored at actually doing anything. We had a couple of successful fundraisers, and so many of the people that have been there forever kind of liked the fact that they had never had to do anything. And so I could see that I wasn't going to have the votes to get elected, so I didn't run for office. The gentleman that did get elected resigned after less than a year in office. And so it was up for grabs. I had become very disgruntled with the way everything had slipped to the point where nothing was happening again. Nobody knew what was going on. Meetings were being canceled. There wasn't any involvement. So I decided to get involved again. I was elected chairman again and made it my goal to start getting more people to come to our meeting. I think you've both been to our meetings, and when I became chair 4 years ago, the history was that a lot of times we didn't even have enough people to have a quorum, which it only took, I think, 7 voting members at that time. Now we're having from 25 to 50 to 70 people at the meeting. We're getting people involved. We've got a database. So I'm hoping that we can continue the force that we've built in Custer County. So that's kind of my background and how I ended up here where I'm at.
Yeah, just to touch on that a minute. You know, I've been here a long time, and I will say that as long as I've been here, that the central committee never reached out to any of the voting, never reached out. I've never heard anything about the Republican committee until I read something in the newspaper. And actually the first meeting that I showed up to is when you got reelected here, whatever that was, last October. So yeah, the Republican Party up here has been slow and unresponsive as far as action, I feel. So we appreciate you for that. Can you explain a little bit, Jack, what the caucus is?
Well, and many states don't have a caucus, but the caucuses in states that have them, and in particularly in Colorado, a caucus is a gathering of the party affiliates, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. It's held on a specific date. It has to be held within about a 10-day period by state statute. And it's where each precinct, Custer County currently has 6 precincts, or 3 precincts. At each precinct, the Republicans get together and they have a couple of functions. Number one, if it's an election year, that is when anyone wanting to run for any county office, what they will do, what they should do, so that they can get on the ballot, is they get as many of their supporters as they can to go to that county caucus. And at that county caucus, there's 2 things that happen. They vote on the delegates from their precinct that will go to the county assembly. Those delegates that go to the county assembly are the ones that vote on what candidates get put on the ballot for the Republican Party or the Democrat Party on their side for the primary election. So it's imperative that the candidates get a lot of their people to that caucus so that they can get elected to go to as the delegate to the assembly so that they can vote for them. Also a caucus is there are 2 people elected to represent that precinct on the county central committee. Custer County, like I said, we have 3 precincts. I would like to see us have at least 9. We have too big of precincts for the PCPs to work. Our precinct committee people, they're supposed to be the outreach between the county central committee and the voters in their precinct. So the voters in their precinct, so they get elected there. That happens on election years, even numbered years is when that happens. So that's what happens at the caucus. Then from the caucus, a few weeks later is the county assembly, where all of those delegates that have been elected, and it's a number that is set by the central committee, how many delegates each precinct has. They get together at the county assembly, and at the county assembly then, everybody votes, on who they want to be for their representative on the primary ballot. In order to get on the primary ballot, the candidate has to have a percentage of the votes. It can be that coming out of assembly, and hopefully coming out of assembly, there's at least two candidates for the Republican Party to go on to the primary ballot. If a candidate doesn't get enough votes at the assembly to get on the primary ballot, then they still have a few days to be able to get enough signatures on a petition so that they can get on the ballot. So that's the caucus and the county assembly set who our county candidates are going to be on the county level. But the county assembly then, there is an election for the delegates to go to the state assembly and every other higher assembly. So Custer County, we're in CD7, we're in JD11, we're in HD60 and SD4. So we elect delegates to go to all of those assemblies. Some counties elect separate delegates to go to the different assemblies. In Custer County, it's the same delegates that go to all of them. So they go to the state assembly and those higher district assemblies, and it's there that those delegates get to vote on who goes on to the ballot for higher offices. So by getting involved in a caucus to begin with and becoming a delegate to the county assembly, then you can become a delegate to the state assembly, and you actually get to be one of the people, a fairly small number of people, of Republicans in the state of Colorado, that get to decide who is going to run for your congressman in your congressional district, or for your state representative to Denver in your Senate House district. So the caucus it's a very, very important part of the process. One of the problems we have in Colorado right now is that we have an open primary. So after the Republicans decide who we want to have on their primary ballot, it used to be that only Republicans got to vote in the Republican primary to decide who was going to be their candidate for the general election. With Colorado now, we have an open primary system, which means the independents, the Republicans get mailed the Republican ballot, the Democrats get mailed the Democrat ballot, and the independents get mailed the ballot of each one, and they can fill out whichever ballot they want to. Well, if you've got and it's shown to have happened, the left-leaning liberal independents have been known to vote for the weakest, vote in the Republican primary so that they can vote for the weakest candidate to try to get the weakest candidate in for the Republican Party. And it's happened. So we need to try to get out of that open primary. The Colorado State Central Committee currently has a lawsuit where we're trying to fight the constitutionality of that open primary. It's expensive. We don't know where it's going to happen, but I believe that that will do two things. Number, if we can get out of the open primary, it will mean Republicans are putting Republicans on the ballot. I think it will also take these independents that don't want to claim a party. If they want to be involved in the primary process, they will have to pick a party. They won't be able to vote in either primary unless they register one way or the other.
I see.
Which in Custer County, you've seen it many times, both of you. The primary election decides who's going to be our elected official.
Most of the time, yes.
Because they're all Republicans. So that with the open primary, the independents get to get in there, and you've seen it happen. We've ended up with some elected officials that were a long ways from being Republican, even though they were registered as Republican.
Yeah.
Because all of these independents were voting for them. So what we've come up with now is murky water in what a Republican and a Democrat are. And we need to get that separated. The two-party system in the United States is the best political system that has ever known to exist. You look at some of these foreign countries where they have 5 or 6 parties, the person that gets elected to run the country might only have 30% of the vote. They are elected by the majority of the people. So we need to get away from that.
Yeah. Well, there's something to be said. I mean, there's a lot of discord in America, but it's still the finest country.
No doubt about it.
Absolutely.
There aren't 14 or 20 or who knows a number of million people trying to get into this country illegally because they like it better at home.
Right. Yeah, you don't see Americans trying to go to another country to get in there.
No.
Yeah.
No. So.
Well, so that then, so it's in the works to try to get this open primary voted the other way so that the independents can't vote that way then.
And it's in the works 2 ways. There's a ballot issue now to opt out of the open primary. And there's a lawsuit that's been filed by the Republican Party so that we can get out of the open primary.
Well, there was another one, Jack, that seems to be pretty important. That's going to be Proposition 131 with the ranked choice voting. Can you elaborate a little bit on that one?
Ranked choice voting will, in my opinion, and many people much smarter than me's opinion, will ruin the state of Colorado. We will never have a true representation of the people's wishes again if we have ranked choice voting.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the mechanics of that, of why, what that's actually going to do to us?
Well, ranked choice voting will basically do away with the political parties. And there's some criteria that there could be 15 people running for an office. So when you vote, you have to pick a number of the candidates say it's 1 through, you pick 5, and you have to rank them 1 through 5. So they go through all of those ballots, and the top people that come out of that election, then they have another election to rank choice 7 again, to get it down to a couple, and then there's another election. And it's very complicated. It takes a long time. If you remember, Alaska in 2022 had ranked choice voting. It was something like 4 months before they knew who their senator was going to be. And so it takes a long process. It's interesting that it's on the ballot this year for Colorado to adopt it. It was on the ballot in Alaska in 2020. Alaska voted it in. They used it in 2022. It's on the ballot this year in Alaska to get rid of it because everybody realized that it didn't work. It wasn't what they wanted. But it basically will do away with I'm going to use the Republic because Colorado actually is guided under the United States, and we're a republic, we're not a democracy. And it will do away with the Republic part of it and the democracy part of it, and make it so that we could end up with a candidate that only 20% of the people approved of could get the election.
While we're kind of on this topic, Jack, can you kind of give us an overview of maybe how it goes in another state that doesn't have a caucus? How do they end up getting their elected or people on the ballot that people vote for?
It's one of the interesting things about the United States because of the way our founding fathers set it up. Elections were supposed to be governed by the state. We've got 50 states in the union, and every one of them has different election laws. And they have different statutes on how the candidates are picked, how they get put on the ballot, how they do things. I believe Iowa is strictly caucus, and they don't even have a primary. They have to go through the caucus and assembly process to get on. Other states, they have a primary, and it depends on the state how those candidates can qualify to be on the primary ballot.
So every state kind of has its own.
Every state has its own deal. That's why people moving from out of Colorado moving here, they need to, if they want to really be involved, they need to kind of learn how our system works. And I hear all the time, well, caucus, what do you mean caucus? I don't even know what you're talking about. That is partly our fault. We are not educating the voter. And that's one of the things, one of my goals of getting more people involved in our central committee meetings and stuff is it's hard to get the whole community together so that they can learn this. But if we can get in our county of 4,500 registered voters, if we can get 100 of them there, that then we'll go out and tell other people and get the word out there that that's the only way I know how to educate them, because I'm not going to be able to, you're not going to be able to get 4,500 people to show up somewhere and have a class on how our system works.
Well, and that's why we've kind of took it upon ourselves to invite you here tonight and hopefully kind of reach out to people with the podcast here and try to help educate our fellow Custer Countyans try to get to the bottom of this because it's important, folks, right? I mean, so when we look at it, right, I mean, you're looking at a lot of the time only 40% of the people vote, and they're deciding to put for the other 60%. So I mean, that doesn't even sound right. I mean, it's hard for me to fathom. And I when I was younger, I didn't vote. I didn't think that I made a difference. But my mom, she kind of had a lot to do with some of the county stuff, and she said, you know, Stephen, the reason why that it's important for you to vote is at the local level because that's where you actually can make a difference. These are the people that are critical at the local level that carry this nation. Everybody thinks, well, it's the president or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's the small communities, it's the communities at large that are making the difference. This is where we live. This is where we raise our kids. This is where they're supposed to get an education, and we can see that they're not getting a very good education.
That's true, and that's why our founding fathers, I don't know how they were so wise, but it was the main reason they set up the electoral college. So that the small communities, the small states, wouldn't be governed by the metropolitan areas and the large population areas. They set up the electoral college and they set up the Senate so that it doesn't matter. California's got a huge population. New York's got a huge population. Florida's got a huge population. South Dakota, North Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, they have small populations, but they still get 2 senators. It doesn't matter how many people live there. So the House of Representatives then is based on population. But our founding fathers were smart enough to know that if they didn't put something in place like the Electoral College and the Senate, then the metropolitan areas would rule the rural areas, and the rural areas, it would be too easy for them to become just slaves to the metropolitan areas. And our founding fathers set it up that way, and that's why it is so important. Even as small as Custer County is, it's so important to be involved in your local level and to really be involved, not just go and vote. Custer County has a reputation of being one of the most active counties in the state. Our turnout for our elections blows most of the rest of the counties out of the water.
And what we sometimes we get up around 60%. Don't we?
Oh, we get in general elections, we get 80, close to 90%.
Oh, do we?
It was one of the amazing things was we had a recall recently. Recall elections usually get 20 to 30% turnout. Our recall election has over 60% turnout. In a recall election, that's unheard of. So our county, they get out and vote, and they do that, and they kind of pay attention to the issues and the candidates. But I wish that they would get more involved in the process so that if they get more involved in the process, that puts us in a position where we can get better candidates to run for these offices instead of just people that are looking to supplement their retirement income or they want a job with the county. We can get candidates that are truly qualified. I'm not saying that we have unqualified or officials in our county. What I'm saying is, in order for the cream to rise to the top, we need more people involved holding that cream up, getting support under them so that they're there and we can get the best and most qualified people to run. And wouldn't it be great if Custer County could have a senator or a congressional, a representative to Washington DC come from little old Custer County? Wouldn't that be great?
It would.
So if we could, because it's gotta be good for our county.
You would think.
So that's why we need to get people really involved in the whole process so that we can help find those candidates and promote them and get them into those positions. If you two are an example of what I've been trying to do. We had some vacancies come up on our committee this year, and both of you stepped up to try to fill those positions. That's what I want. We had a total of 4 candidates when you were trying to fill the position, and there started out 3 with yours. Typically, I've talked to people that were in this about it, that have been in the Central Committee for a long time because they're elected officials, and they told me they used to have PCP vacancies for 1.5 years.
Oh,
They didn't even fill them until the next time for election. So we're making progress.
yeah.
Just got to keep working on it.
Yeah, we appreciate your effort on that, Jack. Yeah, it's like I said before. I mean, I've been a registered Republican my whole life, even though part of the time I didn't vote when I was younger. I still was registered. But there was never anybody that reached out to me and said, "Hey, why don't you help? Why don't you help a little bit? Or we need your support." There was never nobody ever called me, emailed me. Of course, 20, 30 years ago, email wasn't nearly as big a thing as it is now. But I mean, and we just had kind of gotten this whole database together here in whatever the last 6 months or whatever to try to reach out to these people. So it's kind of honoring for me as an outside looking in to say, well, why didn't anybody ever reach out? And we appreciate you at least getting up there and trying to carry it. Seem not to belittle anybody that was in there before, but like you say, if one of these positions, which a PCP, a precinct committee person, is kind of an important, it's kind of an important deal, folks, because when you're talking about the Republican committee has a decent amount of power. They're the ones that are nominating the candidates and for the different things, and then the people, and so the connection be how the committee is supposed to understand who the people would like, what their opinion is the PCP member. So if that vacancy, if the PCP is vacant for 1.5 years, there's no connection between the Republican Central Committee and the people.
Exactly, and that's why our PCPs now in Custer County, there's 2 per precinct. There's an average of about 1,600 voters in each precinct. So those 2 PCPs are supposed to be reaching out to 1,600 people. If you look at the other counties of our size, the average size of their PCPs or precincts is less than 400. Well, if your PCPs need to reach out to 400 voters, and we say voters because, which includes independents, Republicans, and Democrats. If the PCPs are reaching out to all of them, then whichever party they're for, whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans, they can maybe influence those voters that aren't of their party to come into their party. If nothing else, they can get the word out about the different ballot issues. They can get the word out of when a candidate's going to be available to speak. They are the people that actually make it happen. The executive branch of the Central Committee has to try to gather all that together. But there isn't any way that the executive branch can reach out to the 4,500 plus voters. We can't do it. We have to have the PCPs to do that. The same way that the House of Representatives has representatives that reach out to their district. They know what's going on in their district. They can bring those issues forward. The PCPs can bring the issues forward.
Absolutely. And that's the education and awareness. I think that that team that's put together now I think is working toward that. It sounds like you've got a good team in place.
We do. We've got a good team in place. Our lady that's working with the database and sending out emails for us now, Kim Heath, is doing an amazing job for absolutely no thanks. She's doing it because it's in her heart.
Yeah, she's a huge blessing. Huge blessing.
She is phenomenal. And and her and our PCPs that are setting up events and trying to get the vote out, they're doing the best they can with the knowledge that they have. So we've got a system that will really work good. We've got a team that will really work good. And hopefully we can hold everything together until this election's over.
Yeah, that's everybody's hope right now. Get through this election. Well, yeah, because I mean, we don't. We're all about solutions here, folks. Is we're not trying to. There's stuff wrong on every corner that we make, and so I mean, we're not here to try to keep beating a dead horse with that. What we're trying to do is come up with a solution that we can kind of get by, because there's been a lot of discord within the Republican Party, a lot of, in my opinion, and so I'm just kind of a newbie. I've really only been at it about a year, but I mean, we've kind of gotten in the middle of some, I'm going to call it pettiness, and some name calling, and how we're going to be able to remedy that is that what we're trying to do right here is that get more people involved in education. Right, this is how it works. You need to stand up for yourself and let your voice be heard by voting and electing these PCP members and your delegates to go to the assembly. That's how we're being represented here. So that you need to kind of get some education about what we're trying to do. I mean, when the central committee only doesn't even have enough people for a quorum to vote, and there's 4,500 registered voters in Custer County. I mean, I don't know what percentage 7 is of 4,500, but it's minuscule. And I mean, it's almost embarrassing.
I felt it was embarrassing. That's why I wanted to get involved. And the next election that's coming up, our executive committee, which in Custer County we have a chairman, a vice chairman, a secretary, and a treasurer. They get elected on odd number of years in February. So in February, those 4 positions will be up for election. Anybody in the county can run for any of those positions. That's how I got elected. I wasn't part of the Central Committee to begin with. I was a registered Republican in the county, so all I had to do was get nominated by one of the people on the Central Committee. So come February, we might have a completely different executive committee. I will be up for re-election. And Martha for vice chair will be up for reelection. Sandra Otterberry, our secretary, and Nancy Drummond, our treasurer, will all be up for reelection in February. They're elected on odd numbers of years. So any registered Republican in the county can run for those positions. And anybody that wants to do that then needs to get somebody else on the central committee to nominate them. And then they need to plead their case to all of the voting members, which are the PCPs, all of the Republican elected officials, and the current executive committee get to vote on who those four people are. So if there's somebody in the county that's a registered Republican and wants any of those four positions, it would probably be a good idea for them to start now going to their Republican elected officials and their PCPs, to all of the PCPs, and saying, I would like to, I think I want to try for that position. And I'll tell you why, and I hope that you'll vote for me, and if you think I should do something different, let me know. So, because maybe I agree with you.
Right.
But they can start reaching out now. And in Colorado, the chairman, the vice chairman, and the secretary from every county then have a position on the state central committee, which gets to vote for our state officers. Some counties, their executive committee is bigger because in Colorado, if you have 5,000 voters, this year it will be Trump. The last election was for governor, but it's the highest elected official on the ballot. For every 5,000 votes you have for that person, you get what they call a bonus member. I think Fremont County has 4 bonus members, 4 or 5. So they actually have 8 or 9 people that get to vote on the state level.
Total votes, yeah.
Custer County, unless we grow a bunch, we'll never have a bonus member. Some of us probably think that's a good thing. I mean, growth isn't bad as long as it's the right kind of growth, but to get enough
To basically double in size.
we would have to at least double in size
Yeah,
to be able to get 1 bonus member.
Doesn't seem very.
But it's to be able to vote on who the state leadership is makes a big difference for Colorado on the national level, because the state officials then get the vote at the National Republican Committee. Each state has the 3 executives, the chairman, vice chair, and secretary are voting members, and then each state has a national committee man and a national committee woman. So there's 5 people from each state, and then there's some other elected officials. That's why maybe when you've heard about the national committee electing a new chairman, they talk about the vote of the 168. So there's only 168 Republicans in the United States that vote on who is going to lead the Republican Party. So the only way you can have a say in that is to get in a position where you can have a say who is your state official that votes as one of the 168. Or run to be a state officer yourself. That anybody can do it. Anybody can run to be a state officer.
Well, and that's kind of inspiring because, I mean, it's kind of an oddity to me that this is not something that we really learn in school. I mean, when I took government, which that was 30 years ago, I wasn't very good at it at all, and it didn't make much sense. But I mean, it wasn't practical what they're teaching, and I think it's probably less today. So I don't think that any of the younger generation understands what it really means to stand up and try to put yourself forward to try to represent yourself and represent the people from your community, and what this that aside from the way that it might actually be, the way that it's supposed to be. I mean, that's why this is one of the best countries in the world, because we have a chance for free elections. And that this is the process, folks, that we're trying to break down here for you about how you actually go about it.
Well, and one thing I want to say, so many people say that we have the right to vote. No, we have the duty to vote. It's a duty. Our founding fathers said that this is a government by the people, for the people. It is we the people. We have a duty to vote on who our leaders are going to be. It's not a right, it's not a privilege, it's a duty, because we are citizens of this country. Unfortunately, some of the naturalized citizens understand this better than
Absolutely.
people that are born here.
Well, they had to go through a course and learn our government.
Well, they know what it's like on the other side of the fence. It's not pretty.
Right. And, you know, I was in school a lot longer ago than you were. We have to give a little leniency maybe to the fact that most of our classroom books at that time, they were written for every school in the country. So it was a generalization of government. Wouldn't it be great if we could be in a position where we could get something through the Colorado legislature where all of the children in school in Colorado have to take a class in Colorado government.
But it seems to make a lot of sense.
And one of the first places you can work on an idea like that is at the caucus. There's a lot of things that go on a caucus that I didn't talk about, but a caucus, you can present a resolution. If it passes to be taken to the county assembly, those resolutions can be a request for our county commissioners to do something different. They can be something that you want the state or county assembly to pass to take on to the state assembly. The state assembly has a committee that reviews all of the resolutions. It could go on to the resolution at the state convention. If it passes there, then the state will do everything they can to implement it. That's how the lawsuit for to opt out of the open primary, there was a resolution presented at the state assembly and passed with almost a unanimous majority to file this lawsuit and dedicate funds to have the lawsuit opt out of the open primary. So those resolutions, at the caucus process, you can start affecting law.
So that whole thing was born at the caucus then.
That one was born
Or I guess it
at
is.
some county assembly, but it could have been born at a precinct caucus with 45 people in the room. One of them says, hey, we actually, Custer County, uh, 5 or 6 years ago, presented a resolution that actually made it to, that we took on to state. I wasn't chairman then, I don't believe it made it to the state assembly, but it was a resolution that we presented to state to change Colorado to where it was more like the United States, and rather than having Senate districts, each county in Colorado got one senator. And that way, our little rural counties would have the same vote as metropolis like Broomfield County or Denver County. Right, just one senator per county. That was actually first presented at Precinct 1 caucus. And it went to the county assembly, and the county assembly voted to move it on to the state. Like I say, I participated in the caucus that year, but I wasn't the state officer, so I didn't go to the state meeting.
Gotcha.
And everybody needs to know too. One of the things with the newsletter that I'm going to make sure of, in March of this year is going to be the election, the state meeting for the election of our state officers. Any Republican can go to that as a guest. I encourage everybody that can do that so they can see how the process works. They can understand it better.
Well, yeah, that's really some wisdom there. I mean, once again, folks, just to touch on what this is, I mean, the republic that we live in, the reason that we're free men is because there's a process and an order by which we abide by, and we're all a part of that process. And so when you kind of neglect your duty to vote or to be a part of this process, what you're neglecting yourself, you're neglecting our nation. So what you're talking about going to these events so that you can get education, and I know it's not for everyone, but it's still it's a good thing to understand where your freedom comes from, because it's been easy sledding for the last 100 years. Everybody thinks, it doesn't matter if I vote or all this, like we just, everything has been so easy that we don't feel the pressure that we have to we've been neglecting our duty over this thing. And it's time now. This is one of the reasons why we started the podcast. We've invited Mr. Canterbury to come and speak with us, is because it's important for our freedom. I mean, this is the greatest country in the world. And let's face it, right? I mean, we're close to the brink of extinction with communism and socialism and wokeness and all of this stuff that most normal people would never associate with, but yet they don't stand up for their rights and they don't take it upon themselves to do what they need to do, their duty to maintain freedom.
Yeah, getting involved it's everybody's duty, one way or the other. We definitely got a battle on our hands.
It's a battle. A couple things here, Jack. Hopefully you're not too pressed for time. It's taken a longer time than I thought we would actually do. But if you don't mind here, I just wanted to go over a few of these. So the newsletter that's came out from the Republican Party, they're talking about the mail. If you receive more than one ballot, that you need to maybe report that to. There's links, folks, and so we're gonna put all this stuff. And actually, we can post this entire email on the website, right? So everybody can get a look at this stuff and you can read it. You can look at the videos, you can look at, if you happen to get a ballot that's not addressed to you, or you've got more than one ballot or whatever. That's one of the big things about, whether you believe in it or not, but it's obvious that they're doing with this election integrity and manipulating the votes. So there's already a pretty big lawsuit, from my understanding here, the NBRA lawsuit against Jenna Griswold.
Yeah, and it's been happening for a while. I got a call for the 2022 election. I got a call from a voter, and he said, "What am I supposed to do? I've gotten 7 ballots." Wow. What am I supposed to do? I said, "Do you still have them?" And he said, "No, I threw them away." Jokingly, I said, "Vote early and often," but that's not the right thing to do.
7 times.
Yeah, what they want you to do now, this is happening. A lot of people are they're either getting ballots for people that lived at that address that no longer live there, or multiple ballots for themselves. So what they want you to do is take a picture of the barcode that's on the ballot and send it to them so that they can use it in this lawsuit against Jenna Griswold, who tried to keep President Trump off of the ballot. She has been known to say she will do everything she can to keep President Trump from winning. So the state is the one that is responsible for sending out all this ballot. The county can pick, the way I understand it, the county can pick different mail sources to mail them. In our primary election here in Custer County, there was a problem. Our county clerk told me that she had gotten it straightened out, but the service that she picked ended up sending out multiple ballots. I think it was both Republican and Democrat ballots to a lot of the Democrats, or there was a real screw up. But our county clerk said that it was the mail service that was sending those out that did that. It doesn't matter who's at fault or where it's at fault. Many of us hate voting machines. We hate them. We fight them. We fight them. But there's much more potential for fraud with mail-in ballots than there is with those voting machines.
Absolutely.
So people that get these extra ballots, we need to know about them. This law firm needs to know about them for this suit, because they will be able to use those to prove that what the Secretary of State is doing is not legitimate. There's a lot of people that get the multiple ballots that might actually try to vote on them, right? And I don't care who you are, if you see the name on the ballot, so you have to sign it that way, and you sign it, and then it's some tired election judge sitting there, and she gets that ballot in, and she sees the signature, the way you registered to vote, and the signature here. Well, it's the same name. I think it's kind of close. Okay, that's a good ballot. Because people's handwriting changes all the time. It's this verification of signatures. There's experts that spend years learning how to truly verify a signature, And these election judges are given a 30-minute course. That's not enough time to know that you're looking at the right signature. Now, and I guarantee you that there's a lot of husbands and wives that fill out their ballots, and one of them's going to take the ballots in and they look at them and say, oh, we forgot. Jack forgot to sign his ballot. Signs her husband's name, turns it in, and it never gets kicked back. And it happens all the time. Technically, that's fraud. You signed a ballot that wasn't hers. It's fraud.
No, and yeah,
These mail-in ballots it's so easy to create fraud.
yeah, and you know, kind of touching on that, I think that's part of how we've gotten complacent as a people, because how did we used to do it? And you know, when we had this election integrity meeting up here a few months ago, I kind of stood up and asked the gal a little bit about it, and she tried to tell me that it cost, what did she tell me? It cost $15 or something to hand count a ballot, and I mean, I about fell off my stool. How did they used to go down? Everybody went to the voting polls, they all voted, and we knew that night who the elected officials was, not 3 weeks later, not whatever the news said or whatever. So, I mean, that's a complacency that we've all kind of gotten into as a nation of, well, it's too much trouble to go vote, so we'll have a mail-in ballot or this or that. What it is, folks, I mean, when you look at the root of it, it's complacency is what it is. I mean, we got it done back in the old days. We didn't take voting machines. We didn't have none of that. And we got it done that day. So what's happened to us here? Why? I mean, what is the driving factor? And we all know that most Republicans don't believe in mail-in ballots because we know that there's a huge chance for fraud. And most Democrats, they all want mail-in ballots. And that's a little bit opinionated, but I mean, that's my opinion and my take on what's going on here, because you look at these election laws in some of these states, these swing states. I mean, they don't even want signatures. Their signature verification. So why, if you look at the ulterior motive of that, why would you not want a verified ballot? I mean, that's the only thing that it adds up to on the backside is you're trying to shoot for fraud. And I mean, that's the basis of it all, right? I mean, the reason why they're having these mail-in ballots, how we got into this complacency, was to get the American people away from what we really need to be doing is watching our own back door and make sure that what we're doing is taking care of business, and we ain't doing that anymore.
I think it might be a little simpler than that. Voters are lazy. They don't want to go to the poll and vote. They want to sit in their sweatpants eating Cheetos in front of the TV and fill out the ballot and put it in the mailbox. We've gotten lazy. And so most of the voters think it's great we have a mail-in ballot.
Yeah,
which it's because it doesn't require any work or any effort on their part. And as far as the hand counting, at our state meeting, state assembly this year, there were a little over 4,000 people there voting, all of the delegates from all of the counties. And it was all paper ballots, filled out, counted by hand that day. And the people counting the ballots were at tables in kind of a pit where anybody that wanted to could sit up and stand up above them and watch them count the ballots. We counted those 4,000 ballots. I think we had 9 resolutions that we voted on. There was, by the end of the day, it was all counted. We had who been elected the national committee man, who had been elected the national committee woman. With all of that was done, over 4,000 people voted, hand count that day, and we knew the answer. So it can be done.
Can be done. What's your take, Jack? And I know this is kind of a touchy subject, but we're talking about the church and the lack of non-voting from the however we want to, we're not trying to connotate or whatever, any kind of way or means, but the church, a lot of the people from the church don't feel that maybe they don't like a candidate or whatever, so they don't vote. But what is that actually doing to damage? I mean, kind of give us your take on what you think about that.
I'm going to go right back to the duty as a citizen of the United States. Our founding fathers, it is my understanding that all of the people that signed the Constitution of the United States, there was only one of them that was not a Christian. All of them that have written, if you go back and look at the history books and the writings of the people that were involved, from George Washington to Benjamin Franklin to Thomas Jefferson, all of them continually prayed and asked God for how to set up this country. So it is my view that this country was founded with the guidance from our God. And so to be a Christian and not vote just doesn't make any sense to me, because God gave us this wonderful country. He provided this to us. It is ours to protect, and the only way to protect it is to vote. There's some pastors that just won't preach the subject. There's some pastors that that's pretty much all they, I mean, look up Warnock, the liberal Democrat, is a preacher of a church. He preaches politics all the time, but I can understand some people saying, I'll vote on my knees. I'll vote on my knees. Well, that's all well and good, but God gave us this country for, again, we the people. And part of what he expected us to do was to do our part to protect it, which means to vote. And I respect the pastors that don't want to go down party lines because they don't want to hurt their congregation. But asking them to vote doesn't have anything to do with Democrat or Republican or Independent or Green Party or anything else. Just do your duty and vote.
Yeah, because you look at, you think you don't want to tarnish your congregation or whatever, or divide that, but think about the repercussions here. Look what's going on in these war-torn countries. They're burning them churches to the ground. So, I mean, if you don't want to stand up now, then you might never have a chance to ever stand up again.
People don't read enough history books. What you have to do is look at Stalin, I mean, throughout history, look at what the Nazis did to the Jews because of their religion. Stalin put Christians in prison in Ukraine now. They're attacking churches and
Yeah.
putting priests and they're putting them in prison. Folks, you need to vote.
Yeah.
It has nothing. God expects you to take care of yourself. He's not going to take care of you for every little thing, and you need to do your part. You need to pray about it. I believe it's my personal feeling as a Christian that I need to use God's teachings as my guide to who I vote for and follow Scripture. And I have yet to read anywhere in the Bible where it says I should vote for somebody that believes that transgender people need special treatment. It's not in the Bible. It's not in the Bible anywhere where we should let our kids be sexually mutilated. I'm not going to vote for somebody that's for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's getting right down to the basis of the battle of good versus evil that we're actually in. I mean, you can sit there and say, well, I don't want to vote, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. But if you think about what you just said, how can you morally not vote?
Exactly. And look at how this country might turn around. It's Pennsylvania now is getting pretty close to having more registered Republicans than registered Democrats, which is way out. It hasn't been that way for a long time. One of the main reasons for that is the Amish in Pennsylvania are saying we need to start voting. The Amish are getting active. The Amish around here are getting active. The Amish around here are starting to register to vote so they can vote. They didn't for years. It was part of their doctrine. They voted on their knees. That's the way they voted. But they're starting to understand that if they don't actually vote at the election, they aren't going to have the freedoms that they have.
Well, it's apparent now, we've got a lot of issues, and people can't ignore it. I mean, the inflation, number one, the immigration, crime, the schooling system, the list is long of what I would call perversions or exploits. And people are waking up saying, hey, we need to get somebody else around the country. So they're naturally having to wake up because their hands being pushed, just because there's actual effects on their lives in a negative way. They're going, maybe I ought to better get in the game.
I want to do something about this.
Well, and all of those things affect us each personally. I look at it a little different than something. If there's gangs that are robbing CVS's and Walgreens and Walmarts in San Francisco to the point where they have to close down. That's in San Francisco, a lot of people think, that doesn't affect me. Yes, it does, because all of those companies, to cover all of those losses, have to raise their prices everywhere else. Or if they get it all covered by the insurance company, the insurance for those businesses gets increased. So anybody that has a business anywhere in the United States, their insurance is going to go up. So those insurance companies can cover those costs. So we can't sit here in Custer County, Colorado, where we're predominantly a red county and think that those things happening in San Francisco or Los Angeles or Detroit or Chicago don't affect us.
Or Denver.
They affect us. Denver, yeah.
Well, it's right here.
Pueblo's getting red.
It's right here, right now. People are waking up.
Yeah.
But we need that strong leadership going through this transition. And that's what we're trying to do, is raise that standard. We're
Yeah.
trying to raise the standard of
We've
Americans.
got to raise the standard clear down at the county level.
Absolutely.
And so to go on down the list, and like we said, folks, we're gonna make sure that this email is posted on the website. You have the links, the link with the number 4 USWI 2020 @gmail. That's the one with your ballots. There's a couple of ones here. Frank's speech from Mike Lindell talking about with the churches. And kind of the last one here, we got some other stuff that we want to try to get to too, but so we're talking about the stolen election packs. And so there's 2 good videos here, one by Gary Bernstein and another one by Colonel Phil Waldron. So both of these videos, folks, will be posted on the website. I mean, these are must reads for our republic and for our well-being. So, go ahead and spend 20 minutes and look through this stuff and derive your own, be true to yourself here. I mean, we're not trying to influence how you vote. We're just trying to get you to vote, because that's what makes an honest and fair, that's what makes an election, is that everybody's voice is heard. And when only 40% or less of us is voting, then that means that a lot of people's voice is not heard. And that's not, you're not doing your duty to the republic that we live in, and for your kids and their kids and everything that we stand for, the people that have lost their lives so that we could have freedom in this country. It's just getting to the point where, it's just, like you said, Jack, in real layman's terms, people's getting lazy. I mean, they are. They don't understand that freedom comes at a cost, and the cost is high, right? I mean, look what's going on with these religious wars that are going on right now that we have no business in. And at what point are we going to? How many of our soldiers and how much money is all of this going to get squandered that we don't really have anything to do with? Aren't you people tired of that? Or have they pulled the wool over your eyes to the point that you think that we need to stand up for Ukraine more than we need to stand up for ourselves? That's hogwash.
Well, so many people think it's too much trouble to actually go to the poll and vote. And look at all the people that went overseas with a rifle in their hand to defend our freedom, or just look at all of the people that died in the Revolutionary War to give us these freedoms.
Yes.
And we think it's too much trouble to go to vote. Wait a minute. There's something missing here.
Your patriotism,
Yeah.
lack of knowledge, dumbed down in the schools, complacency at an all-time high. And we've got to get that rebirth. Somehow the patriotism's got to get rebirthed in this country.
Fat and lazy. We've had it too easy for too long.
Well, it's fixing to make a little. I think things are going to get. We're probably going to lose a little weight and maybe learn our work ethic. There may be something coming this way that gives us a little incentive to say, wait a minute. Hopefully,
The email you're getting that from is one of the things that I'm proud of that we've done with the Central Committee. Is we've developed that newsletter. It's been coming out now for about 3 weeks. We finally got a database functioning so that we can send out a newsletter. We don't want to bombard people with too much. But right now, from now until November 5th, there's probably going to be a lot of them come out. And then we'll give you all a break. Please don't unsubscribe, because after we get through the election, we won't be sending out stuff probably more than once a week. But for the next 2 weeks, we're going to be, that was an email that I got from the State Central Committee that I contacted Kim Heath about and said, we need to get this out to our database so that the people in the county have this information. And that's, please, if anybody, reach out to either of these two guys, get on their website if you can, submit your email address, and we will make sure and that you get these emails. We would appreciate your cell phone number so that we can send you texts also. But if you want to stay up to date on this stuff, reach out to Jim or Steve and get them your email and cell phone number. They'll get it to us. We'll get you on this database and we'll start getting you information to you.
Now, they also, folks, they have another number here. This is 719-429-5410. So you can text your name and your email address once again to 719-429-5410. And so you can text your name, you know, if you would like to be a part of this and get some more education, that's one of the best ways to get right there and get on this mailing list. And, you know, we're not trying to solicit anybody here. We're trying to educate people. That's what this is all about. It's been far too long. People have their head in the sand. They ain't paying attention. They don't care. All really big problems for our republic. Well, we got a little bit of time here, Jack. I know we're taking if you don't mind, let's run through a couple of these amendments. Amendment G, modify property tax exemption for veterans with disabilities. I mean, doesn't it seem fair to go ahead and cut our veterans, the people that have fought for this country and fought for our freedom? We've given all this money away to everybody else that's not even a citizen of this country. I mean, it only seems fair to vote yes on Amendment G to modify the property tax exemption for veterans with disabilities.
I think it should be a no-brainer.
I agree. I mean, let's face the facts. I mean, where's your patriotism? These are the guys that, I mean, they're not even getting, if they could get taken care of as good as these illegals, I mean, they're the ones that fought for our freedom. I mean, let's put two and two together here, folks. I mean, that's kind of pretty snotty, really.
Yeah.
Next one on the list here would be Amendment I, constitutional bail exception for first-degree murder. And I guess I'm not familiar with what that one is.
What that will do will make mandatory high bail or no bail for first-degree murder. The way our justice system is now, that you can be charged with first-degree murder and be let out on your own recognizance. And that is going to require that there be high bail or no bail for people charged with first-degree murder. There can be an argument that while you're charged with it, that you haven't been convicted of it yet. Well, there's evidently some pretty good evidence that there's a possibility you did it, so you might have to suffer for a while. But it's better than having somebody that actually did it get released on no bail and be out there running around and do it again. We need to have that.
Here again, I think we need better judgment in the court system. A lot of this law is just because the judicial people are just not doing their job. It should be a case by case. I know if somebody busted your window out and was attacking your wife or something, and you shot them, and you killed them, do you want to spend 2 years and they say, oh no, you can't bail out. Do you want to spend 2 years waiting for the court system to hook you up? You'd be in jail for a couple of years? Is that how that could work?
Well,
It's a pick and choose.
well, and so let's just to clarify, what we're doing right now is we're talking about.
Yeah, I don't want to debate any of it too much.
Well, and we're talking about, this is the Colorado Republican Committee voting recommendation.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's a good point, Jimmy, that you make. Hey, if a guy was protecting his freedom and your family, I mean, but that's just a tough cookie to crumble, because on the flip side, we got all these illegals that are, I mean, they've done already killed quite a few people, and they just let them right on out. So I mean, that's really
So it really comes down to the judges and really how it's being administered now, the laws that are on the book, and what we're doing as a culture. I mean, the way we're rolling right now is just absurd. So, yeah.
I agree with you, but I'm going to answer your question too. If I saved my wife's life, I'd spend 2 years in prison waiting to be exonerated. As long as I saved her life.
And if you didn't,
So, and
see, that's all. I'm just saying, it's not a cut and dry. We talked about these. We spent a few hours discussing some of these, and it was a straight no all the way down to it. That's not to say that, everybody's got their own convictions and the way they're going to look at something.
well, and once again, we're not trying to tell you how to vote. We're
No.
just explaining what these mean, because they're complicated to read and understand.
yeah, and
Even on the veterans thing, and you know where I stand with veterans.
but there's
But there again, there's some stuff going on there. I mean, it sounds really good on the surface, but if you delve into it and see the consequences of that, it could very well be not really for the best. It could be a lot of something else. That's you did nail on the head right there. Nail on the head.
money out of it one way or another.
Absolutely. So it's not as simple as it seems, so you're gonna,
Yeah.
depends on how deep you look into it and how knowledgeable you are of the consequences. I mean, a lot of times these people are preying upon people's lack of knowledge. They're doing a lot
Well,
of
of course they are.
word salad and mixing stuff up. But,
Well, and so another one here would be Amendment K, modify constitutional election deadline. And the Republican committee recommends voting yes on that, and I don't have any idea what that one is.
That one is to shorten the election time and to modify the dates. There's a lot involved there too, but having so much time to vote, the Republicans think we need to narrow that down. A lot of them think that we need to go back to, you have 1 day to vote. The way it used to. Yeah. You go in to vote on that day. Back the way it used to be.
when it was a duty,
And yes, and it was a duty.
you
That
had,
was a duty, but
everybody knew you were gonna go vote because it was your duty, because they were gonna go vote.
And one of the problems we have now, look at all the people in the United States that have already voted. And they're trying to assassinate one of the candidates. What if they succeed?
Right.
Where does that vote go now? Or, I mean,
Probably the same place all
there's
Joe
so
Biden's
much,
votes went.
there's so much stuff can happen clear up to the day of the election that some of these states started voting 2 or 3 weeks ago. Those people, a lot of them there might be something happen that they change their mind before it gets to the actual election day to use the vote. So we need to get that down.
A lot to do.
And my gosh, everything else is a holiday. Make it a holiday.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
actually, that's just what I was thinking. They want to give you all the rest of this time off, at least make it for something that counts.
And there again, if we're gonna hands down agree on that, and I think the majority of patriot American people are gonna agree on that. Why hasn't it? Why isn't it like? What is really going on here? How come that? There's things that we state the obvious, and why they haven't happened is you gotta look at,
Why
there's some weirdness
why
going on there.
it
So.
changed was there were some people didn't think it was fair that you had to go into this on a certain date to vote. It wasn't fair to everybody. And then it really got crazy when COVID hit. When COVID hit, a lot of states that didn't have mail-in ballots, they went to mail-in ballots. They had a short window to vote. Well, that's COVID. We got to give people time, so they made it 6 weeks. So that COVID pandemic was used to alter a lot of our government institutions, many of them unconstitutional.
Absolutely. And that's recognizing how the virus got into the culture.
Right.
So now knowing the situation, we've got to be able to have the cure. We've got to have the answer. And that's what Steve keeps alluding to. We're here to raise the standard and let's look for some solid answers. Recognize how it got here.
Right.
And how we got to fix it.
Yeah, here's another one, Jack, that seems fairly controversial to me. Is going to be Proposition 128 in the Republican Party, the Colorado Republican Community, recommends voting yes for this one. Parole eligibility for crimes of violence.
Yeah. That one is to make it harder for people to get parole if they've committed crimes of violence. And that's why the Republican Party's for it. Because it's not to make it easier, it's to make it harder.
Yeah, and so that's what we're trying to do here, everybody, is kind of make sure that you understand what these actually,
Right.
what they actually mean. Okay, number 129, Proposition 129, establishing veterinary professional associate.
That one, and they don't have an opinion on that one, do they, or did they say yes?
Well, they did say yes on this one, the Colorado.
And I see some possible downsides to that. I see some real upsides right now, especially in rural areas and for large animal vets. It's really tough to get one.
Inexpensive.
And
Very expensive.
and the cost isn't where I'm going. It's more with a friend of ours had a horse that got really badly injured. They needed a vet. Now, we started calling veterinarian, and they said, "Is the horse a patient of ours?" No, we can't see it then. We can't see it then. We went through a whole bunch of vets. They kept saying, "You need to drive to CSU if you need something right now." We finally did find a vet that would see it. But our veterinarians are just so overstressed. And part of that is because we aren't getting enough people going to veterinary school that want to practice in rural areas. Rural areas is where it's the real problem. So this is trying to alleviate that.
So an associate would be someone kind of like
It's kind of nurse practitioner. Okay,
got it.
but here's where the caveat might come in with this one is there aren't any programs set up. There aren't any guidelines for what it would take to be one of these vet practitioners, you know?
Hmm.
So that creates a problem. And the way I understand it from a veterinarian was that part of the problem is all of the vet colleges that are doing their admissions on the DEI stuff. So good students aren't able to get in. There, there are some other programs, and there's a lady here in the valley that's really familiar with them. She's a friend of ours. And we had a young lady from the valley here that wanted to go to vet school, but she couldn't afford it. She didn't have the money, she couldn't do it. And my wife, Jean, talked to her about it. And she said, I think we might be able to do this. And she got this young lady hooked up with Jan Snow. And Jan knew about this program. And it's a grant. And this young lady received it. She qualified for it. But part of it is they will pay for her vet school. But she has to come back to Custer County to practice.
Hmm. I like that. That's
So that's a great program.
absolutely.
More programs like that might be better than what this is.
That's really where the tread hits the pavement and short, making things not so laborious and bureaucratic. You know what I mean?
Right. So I can see some good in this, where like if my friend that had the horse hurt, I didn't have the equipment or stuff, but I've seen stuff like that. But he wasn't going to trust what I told him to do or the medicine because I didn't have a time. So some people, I mean, you've been around livestock all your life. You know how if somebody that's not familiar with cows and they have a cow that's lame, you can look at it and say, well, it's a broken leg or it's foot rot. And you can help them treat it. But you would do that for a friend anyway,
Right.
you know. Uh, I think this would probably be a good thing. I really do. But there's a lot of other stuff that needs to go into it to make it a good thing.
Absolutely.
And so the last one here that they have for a yes vote would be Prop 130 funding for law enforcement. So, is that going to be more funding than they're currently receiving? Is that kind of, yeah. Uh-oh, speaking of, there's a siren.
It must be this one.
Maybe
We got a good sheriff.
Let's go with it.
Yeah, I'm parked in about 17 parking spaces out there, so.
You're gonna be okay.
But, yeah, I mean, look at Custer County. We have so much trouble getting good qualified deputies because number one, they can make more money someplace else. Number two, we really don't have much of any place for them to live. So we need to have some funds there, either for higher wages or for better equipment. And with how many millions of people coming into the country we don't know anything about.
Mhm.
How much more law enforcement are we gonna need?
Well, the tail's wagging the dog pretty hard right now.
Yeah.
And definitely, and that's leadership in the counties too. Law enforcement really needs to be looked at. And I think there needs to have a little bit more allocated in the budget for it. And, maybe we don't need some of this other stuff. I mean, I think we just got chipper. Anyways, we're not gonna get into that right now.
Maybe.
But that's my take on it. I mean, we almost had a $21 million or some kind of justice center. That's a whole nother issue.
Yeah, we're
Lot of
gonna be
issues.
addressing that here at some point, but we're just, this is real close to the election here. We thought it would be fitting for, to kind of try to educate people the best we can with this stuff that's coming up. It's so pertinent. So we got, there's, 2, 3, 4, 5 different ones here that we want to vote no on.
Is school choice one of those? I'd kind of like to.
It is,
Okay, and the reason,
that's Amendment 80.
the reason the Republicans say to vote no on that, I think all of us have been proponents of school choice for a long, long time. I think it should be school choice, and you pay your school district taxes, whatever they be for your school district. If you want to send your child to a private school or homeschool them, you should get that money back to pay for the private school or to help with the homeschool. I think school choice is a no-brainer. The problem with the way this one is written, it leaves it open for the state to start mandating what is taught in private schools and home schools. And that's why the Republican Party is against it, because it leaves it open for the state to say, okay, you're a private parochial school. You're a Christian school, but you've got to teach your kids about transgenderism. That's a requirement from the state. In order for you to have school choice, we're going to regulate you. And that's why the name sounds great, school choice. We've been trying to get school choice in Colorado since the 1980s, I think, and haven't been able to do it. Well, the powers that be that want to control everything finally said, okay, let's give them what they want. We'll give them school choice, but we will put in the bill for school choice that we get to tell them how they're going to teach their private schools, their Christian schools, their Catholic schools. We're going to tell the Amish what they have to teach in their private schools and their homeschooling. And we're going to take control of all of that. And that's why the Republican Party is saying to vote no on that, even though the title makes it sound great.
Well, and a lot of those are that way. And when you start really thinking through
Well, and so
And there's smarter people than me at the state that have analyzed all of these. There's legislators that I trust that have analyzed them. And I actually talked to Stephanie Luck about that one, and I said, wait a minute, this sounds school choice, why aren't we for that? And she's the one that explained it to me, that's going to leave it open. So it doesn't say it in the bill that they can do it right now, but it doesn't say they can't. So,
we know where they're coming from.
yeah,
And that's something that I've kind of run onto here lately, and listening to some of these guys talking about how the school board, the good thing about a school board is that you have some way to, the public opinion has some influence on what's going on at the school. with no school board, you're stuck with the NGO that's running it. And that, I mean, then it's transvestite story time. And I mean, it's not good for freedom, folks, is where we're going with this.
Right.
This is another touchy one, Jack, would be Amendment 79, the constitutional right to an abortion.
Seeing what that is, it was decided years and years ago that the abortion issue was going to be a state issue. So it's on our state ballot. If you read that further, it says that the taxpayers will pay for the abortion. Whether you're for abortion or against abortion, the taxpayer shouldn't pay for it. No matter where you're at.
No matter where, I mean,
To me, that's a given.
Yeah.
Don't use my money for that.
But that's what that says, that it will be taxpayer-funded abortions.
Yeah, and Colorado's all the way up to, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
like full term.
Colorado, yeah. Yeah. So that really doesn't have, the only thing that has to do with abortion is they want the taxpayers to pay for it.
Yeah.
Because abortions, you can already, like you say, full term.
Oh, it's abomination.
Yes.
It's not as bad as it gets.
That one says that we'll have to be paying for everybody else.
Yeah, and I don't want to be involved in that.
Yeah.
next one up here is one we've already kind of touched on. That would be no on Proposition 131, establishing all candidates primary election and ranked choice voting general election.
Yeah, no, we can't do that. That'll.
Fundamentally, that destroys the republic.
Yeah.
It's not even it's kind of a democracy upside down, even.
Yeah.
Because you don't know who you're going to get.
Yeah, it's not
the voice of the people.
democracy.
No, it's some weird deal going on there.
Yeah, because in a democracy,
The voice.
it means that somebody gets 51% of the vote, or more than 50.01.
Exactly.
It has to be more than 50% of the vote.
Yeah.
With ranked choice voting, it doesn't have to be 50% of the vote. That's their opinion.
It can go anyway. That's a Super Bowl of it. Yeah.
Proposition JJ, retaining additional sports betting tax revenue. I guess I'm not real familiar with that one either. Retain additional sports betting tax, well, I guess maybe I am. They're wanting to try to take all the money from the sport betting and keep it all for themselves.
Well, no, they're going to give it back to you.
That's pretty much it.
They're going to give it back to you
It's a money grab.
after they water it down a little.
Proposition KK, vote no for firearms and ammunition tax.
Yeah, they want our money again.
Well, they want it from certain people. And if you're involved in guns and ammunition, we want it from you guys.
They're already getting us. Anyway, but yeah, it's just more profiles. It's another tax. It's a tax, and again, predominantly on the rural people. It's a tax on it's a tax on the patriots, on the
People in the dirt, people in the
on
dirt that are creating things,
Right,
not people that are on the pavement consuming things.
right,
Real simple.
yeah.
And I don't see one here, Jack, that we wanted to discuss was the issue with the mountain lions. Kind of go through that about how that, I mean, it seems simple about one thing about the mountain lions, but it really encompasses a lot more than that.
Well, I don't know if you all remember years ago when they had it on the ballot to end spring bear hunting and the baiting of bears in Colorado. And that was a ballot issue. And it passed to do away with spring bear hunting, and it passed to make it illegal to bait bears. And I can maybe see a little bit, if you're baiting bears, some people said, well, it makes them want to go to garbage cans and stuff. I think they would have gone to the garbage cans anyway.
I would agree.
But our Colorado Constitution actually says that natural resources are not supposed to be managed by a vote of the people. Wildlife is a natural resource. So when that bear thing happened, there was a big lawsuit. And it took years to go through the courts to say that it was unconstitutional because they had left management of a natural resource to the voters. And they lost the lawsuit. That was upheld. And so now there are more bears destroyed by the Parks and Wildlife than ever before. Because there's more bears, they're getting into the urban areas, they're getting in trouble, there's having conflicts with humans. So the Division of Wildlife is having, they probably wouldn't really tell you how many bears they actually put down, but they probably wouldn't have to do it if it's still enough bears in the spring.
Yeah.
And bait.
And so that's Proposition 127.
Yeah, and so the mountain lion's gonna be the same way. We're going to, number one, we've already lost a huge amount of our deer population to the mountain lion. An adult mountain lion, they say, will eat a deer a week. That's 52 deer a year. There are so many mountain lions that they set a quota for the different areas where they can hunt them. In most areas, those quotas are filled within 2 or 3 weeks, and some of them within a week.
Wow.
They filled it because there are so many mountains. My wife went mountain lion hunting, and this has been 8 or 9 years ago. They, North Dakota Patsy, they drove up, there was fresh snow, they drove up, they were seeing the tracks. My cousin, who's hunted mountain lions with dogs for 30 or 40 years, he said, we've got at least 8 mountain lions right here. We need to try to figure out which one we're going after. I turned the dogs out on one. There was another hunter. My wife was just pretty much along. And so she was walking in the tracks of the other hunter. She was behind him a distance. And all of a sudden she started noticing there were lion tracks in his tracks.
Yeah, these are
And he wasn't that far ahead of him.
these are
And there
apex
were lion
predators.
tracks in his tracks. That's how many lions there are. We're seeing, a friend of mine was elk hunting in eastern Colorado, South Carolina. I've got the pictures she sent me on her cell phone. A mountain lion was actually stalking her. He's got pictures of him about 10 to 15 yards from her in the crouch. She finally fired her gun in the air, and he kept coming. She finally had to shoot him. She hit him and he ran off. He told the game warden about it, and he said that She was the second or third person that had an encounter like that, with a mountain lion out in the wilderness by herself. So we have to control these mountain lions. We have to do something with them. Or what people don't understand is that the pretty little kitty isn't going to come into their campground and get in their tent. To snuggle up and get warm.
So it's just like the wolves, right? They introduce these wolves. Let's face it, folks, it's all fun and games till they get your little kid. And that's what we're talking about here. I mean, these are apex predators. That's what they do. They get you if they can.
But 20 years ago, how often did you hear about somebody sent out?
Not much.
It was pretty rare because they stayed hidden. They didn't want you to see them any more than you wanted to see them. How often do you hear about it now?
Well, yeah, they're all over the place. You hear them about they jumping on the trail, getting on people that are hiking, and I mean, they're
Out in Rosita, because that's where the deer are. People walk out with their dog and they look up and there's a lion in the tree in their yard.
well, yeah, and we were up in some country out here just a day or two ago, and I mean, the deer are not like they used to be. There's plenty of deer in town, but not out in the open.
But it wasn't very long ago we had lion in town.
Anyhow, folks, so yeah, it's, at some point realistically, you have to understand what's going on here that, yeah, we're not trying to be mean or, I mean, if it would have been 100 years ago, I mean, it's when the mountain lion comes up on you, right? It's, do you want, it's apex predator. It's them versus us, right? So you can't get too soft in your heart and say, well, like Jack said, oh, poor kitty. I mean, these are apex predators. They'll get you if they can.
It tastes good too.
Never have tried one. I guess we'll end, Jack, on this if we can go through, of course, anybody that has any sense at all, if you don't vote for Donald Trump, I don't think that you understand the seriousness of what is in jeopardy with our freedom. I mean, the people that are, the way that Joe Biden run this country for the last 4 years, Kamala Harris promises all of this stuff. J.D. Vance made a real good point. If you're promising all this stuff, then why didn't you do it? And we know that she's not going to, folks. She's just trying to gaslight you. So, of course, Donald Trump is hopefully give us a few more minutes at freedom.
Well, yeah, and then if that happens, we can actually get people activated, operating in a local area and making the difference locally. That's what this is really about.
And I think Mark Halperin, very distinguished reporter, political reporter for years. When Donald Trump gets elected, we're going to see the largest mental health crisis in the United States has ever seen. Because these people are going to lose their minds, the people that are against it. So be vigilant and be prepared. The Bible says that before things get good, we will have to suffer. So there may be some suffering coming.
Well, and so this is something that I've been picking up too on this history class, autonomy course that I've been taking. I mean, there's plenty of national-wide surveys say that only 1 out of 2 Americans are literate. So if half of the people can't read and they believe the propaganda, of course they're going to be out of their mind against what, I mean, If you have any bit of an analytical mind to look through the facts of what, does Donald Trump, I'm not saying that because number one, I don't know Donald Trump, never met him, don't claim to. I mean, that's just the way it is. His personal habits are none of my business, and I don't care about it. But his ability to lead this country is what I care about, and the proof's already in the pudding. My life was much better when he was the president than it is now. There's no question. I mean, and if you don't understand that, you must be kind of delusional. That mental unawareness that illiteracy would create. I mean, if you think that it's okay to mutilate your kid, I mean, all I can say is wow. I mean, that's as twisted as about any kind of concept that I've ever tried to wrap my head around. I mean, you think your little boy wants to be a girl, so you're going to go in and mutilate him? I mean, that mental capacity right there, I mean, it's far and beyond what, I mean, when you were talking about perversion, I mean, it's so far out there that, I mean, I just, it's hard for me to even fathom how somebody could say that. So yeah, this gentleman that's talking about the mental instability of these people, that they have so much hatred for Donald Trump. And it's basically based on propaganda. It's not on facts, or they wouldn't be, I mean, they kind of, in my opinion, I thought that Kamala done a way better debate than I thought she was ever capable of. And of course, they talk about how she has the earpiece, earrings, and all of that stuff. And regardless of how that went, I mean, you look at the track record. I mean, here she is. She was the border czar. So you've given FEMA money to 30 million immigrants, and now the people of North Carolina and Eastern Tennessee are in as bad a hurt as you can be in. And FEMA's trying to tell them there's no money left?
Well, we have to, it's my opinion, it's a matter of good versus evil. And evil's in full view, and they're after us. But we have to remember, good wins.
Absolutely.
So,
Stay in the fight.
so good's gonna win. It might be really uncomfortable for a while, but good's gonna win.
Absolutely.
And that's the critical part, folks, why we're going through all this. That's why it's so critical that your duty to go vote.
Yeah, to exercise all the freedoms we have and to influence our future without shifting into second gear is what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
We don't want to get into that second deal.
No.
We want to be proactive in being civil and raising standards of behaviors and socially acceptable things that need to be done.
So going to the representative, Jack, for District 7. Sir Jake, can you tell us about him a little bit?
Yeah, I can tell you a little bit about him. He's a naturalized citizen from Poland. Came here about 35 years ago with $90 in his pocket. Worked at several different jobs. Created his own American dream. Has a beautiful wife and family. His father and grandfather were both thrown in the gulag for being Christians. Their farms were taken away from them. Their cattle were taken away from them. They were persecuted for being Christians. And Sergei's built a life here. He sees that our country is headed in the wrong direction. He knows what the bad can really be. He's one of the people who would tell you, yes, you have a duty to vote. And he decided to do this. His campaign is very underfunded. He needs all the financial support anybody can give him. His website, I believe, is Sergey for Congress. He's one of the finest people I've ever met. Very pleasant to talk to. And we really need him in CD7. Unfortunately, Brittany Peterson, the liberal that is a representative for CD7 now, has used her influence in Congress to get a lot of money to a lot of small communities. And I think it's going to influence the vote. I'm really sad to say that she gave Silvercliff a grant for $1.37 million. And so our Republican city council in Silvercliff decided to have a special day for Brittany Peterson, which I think is an abomination. But that's me. I'm a Republican.
I agree with you.
I don't think we need safe places for druggies to shoot up drugs. I don't think we need an abortion clinic in Custer County. Sergey, none of that would happen. I'm really hoping it's a tough battle for Sergey. There's one glimmer of hope for him, and that is that there's another liberal running, and those two liberals might split their side of it to give him a chance.
That'd be handy.
I hope if he's willing, if he doesn't make it this time, to continue to campaign for the next 2 years so he can take it for 2 years.
Yeah.
But he's a super good guy. He's been here to West Cliff. At least he was here on the day of caucus and went to every precinct caucus. He visited every precinct caucus. He was here for a fundraiser we had at All Aboard West Cliff, and then he was here for our Lincoln Day, and he's just a great guy.
Yep, so there you go, folks. That's a little explanation about what we're doing here with Sergey. Jack, can you explain real quick what the region of the University of Colorado at large is? What does that mean?
Well,
Or what is that? What's their
the University of Colorado is taxpayer funded. So the taxpayers get to vote on who governs and decides what the University of Colorado is supposed to do. And so they call them regions. And at large means that it's everybody in the state can vote for the ones at large rather than in a particular district. It's a little bit unfortunate that I think some of those positions are very, very important, but we never really hear much about the candidate. They're on the ballot. And it says whether they're a Republican, a Democrat, or a Green Party, or whatever. And being a Republican, I'm going to vote for the Republican, but I'm not sure I can tell you much about it.
Well, and so that would be Eric Renard is the gentleman's name, folks, but I just wanted to get a little explanation of what that university at large even what it represented.
Yeah.
Education.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jack.
So I really wish that those candidates would put themselves out there and say, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, this is why I want you to vote for me. But I don't believe it's a paid position. So to spend a lot of money campaigning on it, you know,
It's a very influential
right.
in the educational realm. That's where the battleground is in the educational realm. So that person's job could be very, very, very influential. May not pay, like you said, it may not be a monetary thing, but it could be a principle thing.
Uh, I don't know how much time we have.
Oh, well, so I,
Tell Warren,
yeah, we can go as long as you need.
Because
Make sure that we-
an interesting story about the school board.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, this is, I don't know this for fact, but I've heard it enough that I believe it is fact. Our current governor, Jared Polis, his first elected office was on the state school board, which is an unpaid position. He spent $1 million campaigning for that position. He beat his Republican opponent by just a few votes. There wasn't very many. And when the Republican, his concession speech, he made the statement that if he would have known Jared Polis was going to spend $1 million on the campaign, he would have taken $500,000 and just dropped out of the race.
sure,
You know?
here,
Yeah.
I'm out.
Give me $500.
I'm out.
You can have it.
Yeah, it's all yours.
But that's how Jared Polis got his start in politics. He spent $1 million getting elected to an unpaid position.
And that's how these folks work.
Scary.
They're working so hard in overtime to get in these positions of influence and power. And we're very complacent. We're thinking, no, the Constitution's strong, our moral conduct, this country's strong, we'll be able to withstand that kind of thing, and it will be exposed sometime, and we'll get bigger and better for it. They've got such a grip on it now. We may have wasted too much time. Hopefully, we can get it back, but
One of
it's a harsh reality because that's the kind of people.
one of my pet peeves about Custer County. There are a lot of boards that are appointed by the county commission. There's a tourism board, there's a zoning, there's all kinds of boards.
There is.
You know any Republicans that are on any of those boards?
A little bit,
Not very much.
not very much.
The
Are
Democrats,
so proactive.
Yes, can't get elected to office here, but they volunteer for all of those positions. They volunteer for the library board, they volunteer for the hospital board, they volunteer for the tourism board, they volunteer for all these things. They suck the county for all the money they can suck for them.
Yep.
And then they do everything to promote the liberal agenda.
Absolutely.
I'm not afraid to say I'm a conservative, I'm a Republican, and we need to get the conservative Republicans to step up and volunteer for some of those boards
Very
and get
influential.
involved with them
Absolutely.
so that the tourism board doesn't start having transgender story hour at the Bluff Park, you know? We've got to get conservatives involved.
We do.
Well, and that's part of it at the bigger level, right? That's what we call an NGO, a non-governmental organization. These are not elected officials that are running our country. And that's what we're talking about right here in our little county is these boards of these people that have authority that are not elected.
And now that we know about it,
But
and now that people are being consciously aware of it now, hopefully we can change that. Because I moved here because of how this county is. I didn't move here and I want to enhance it. If I was of the other persuasion, I would have went to Boulder or some other place that accommodated my belief system. I came to Custer County because it accommodated what I needed. I don't need these people coming here and undermining it. And that's why we need other people to, come on, get involved. Let's protect what we have.
and we need our county to hire more fiscally conservative people so that we don't end up with $100,000 timber shredders.
Well,
Yeah, and going in business with, the private sector.
well,
That's brilliant.
and that's a real good point there. I mean, what you're doing is putting the pressure on people that make a living doing that. So you're gonna spend taxpayers' money to go in competition against themselves.
It's bizarre.
Yeah, I mean,
It is so upside down, but
Well,
that's liberalism.
well, and it is, right? I mean, they say, well, it's too expensive to rent $500 a day for a chipper, so let's spend $100,000. I mean, who thinks like that?
So we can't afford the 3 nurses for the jail we already own. So let's go get a $21 million jail.
That'll fix it.
That'll fix it. It's the bizarre thinking behind this. And please, Custerites, wake up. We got our hands full here. And we can influence and absolutely have influence over our future. Because I don't want to, when I retire or whatever, I don't want a bunch of high taxes and a bunch of crazy going on here. I want to try to preserve this place in American fashion.
Let's talk about Stephanie Luck a minute, Jack. That would be our state representative for District 60.
Custer County, in my opinion, is the luckiest county in the state of Colorado. Well, Custer, Fremont, Clark, Stephanie's district. We have the smartest, true patriot representative that we could possibly have in the House of Representatives. Is truly afraid, and she isn't doing it for the money. Stephanie Luck is an attorney, a constitutional attorney. She could be making big bucks somewhere. She is working for the people and getting paid less than our county commissioners are to do it because she feels a calling that other people just can't have. She has sacrificed so much to represent us. I can't say enough good about her. She's recently married, recently over a year now, but.
They've got a little one, don't they?
Yes, Kyle. Her husband has a master's degree in history. He's a lot like Stephanie. He could probably be making a lot of money as a college professor. He is working for little or nothing, on the road all the time. The last I knew, he still worked for Gun Owners of America, and the last I knew, he was the Western Region representative, so he's on the road all the time, away from his family. And he doesn't get paid anything either. There are 2 people that are true patriots that want to work for the betterment of our country. And we couldn't ask for anybody better. We've got, he's not up for election now. Our Senator Mark Baisley is in the same class with Stephanie. We are extremely fortunate to have those two people represented.
And we appreciate that. We really do. Thank you, Stephanie. So on district attorney in the 11th judicial district, Mr. Lindsay's running under opposed, but do you know anything about him?
I know a little bit about him. He currently works for the district attorney in Public County. He's very conservative. He grew up in Florence. He knows the area. He knows Custer County. He'll be representing Custer County, Fremont, Chaffee, and Park County. I don't remember. I don't think Keller. He's very conservative. The most I can say about him is that I think we've got a great sheriff, and I trust our sheriff, and our sheriff, Rich Smith, thinks the world of Jeff. So I think we're in good shape there. Our last district attorney has had some issues. I think she was probably a good district attorney. She just wasn't a very good office manager. She didn't know how to delegate and use her assistant district attorneys, and she got in over her head a few times. But I think she was a pretty good district attorney. She just got in, like I said, a little over her head, and some of the skills you need to run an office are different than what you need to be a district attorney. And running that, it's like somebody can be the best pie maker in the world, and they open a pie shop and they go broke because they don't know how to run a business.
Right.
You know, they still make good pies.
Well, and that's just it. Just because you know what to do, don't mean you know how to, or you know how the financial responsibilities and everything that it takes for business. There's two different worlds.
Big picture, little picture, big picture. Absolutely.
But we'll kind of finish here, Jack, on our county commissioners. We have one for District 2 and 3. For District 2, we got Paul Vogelsong, and he's running against Kevin Day. I got a couple of words there. Kevin was a Republican. He went unaffiliated. Once again, we're not really here to try to. I mean, we'll get to discussing Kevin Day at a later date because we have plenty of information that needs to, we think, be exposed. But we're here, you know, to kind of promote the Republicans. So, what do you know much about Paul?
I don't know a lot about him. I don't think, I'm pretty sure Paul doesn't have any experience in the type of work that is going to be required of him as far as experience. But I think Paul has the ability to learn and adapt. And I think that I think Paul will listen to the people. You know,
That will be important.
whether he'll do what they say or not, I think you'll be able to have a conversation with him, and he'll listen to you and take it under advisement. If there's something that you feel he's doing right or wrong, would like to see the county do. I think he's somebody that's approachable and will listen. I've been, you know, Mr. Dave's made some comments publicly to the effect, I don't work for the people of Custer County, I represent them. Well, wait a minute, no, you work for us. We provide your paycheck. You work for us. So those kind of things, I don't think we're gonna hear out of our goals.
And not to beat on Kevin too bad, but he is kind of fits into that category of liberals that run under the Republican. And that's what, folks, if you don't understand what RHINO stands for, that's Republican in name only. And that's kind of where Kevin comes across. I mean, he's not financially irresponsible. There's just a few things that doesn't fit very well with being a Republican that he, in the past has represented. And so, yeah, we didn't feel that he represented us very well as a Republican, and he's no longer affiliated with the Republican Party.
Correct.
But I guess just to touch base, and it is what it is. There's also a write-in candidate, Lynn Atterbury. He's also a Republican, but the way that it kind of went down with the procedure of what we're talking about with the caucus and all that, then he doesn't have the official support from the Republican Party.
Correct.
And so District 3, going to be Lucas App running against Jordan Hedberg. This is kind of a no-brainer. Jordan runs the liberal paper in town. He's sued. Once again, we're not trying to try to bash a candidate. We're trying to talk about the positives, but I think some of this stuff just needs to be broke out. He sued the county on multiple levels. This kind of a very another gentleman that was Republican until it didn't go the way he wanted, and then he switched to unaffiliated. Basically a RHINO, Republican in name only. He doesn't represent what a Republican is, even though he tried to say that he was. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that I'm not sure really understand what a Republican is. There's so many people in politics that want to use the moniker that they think is going to get them ahead.
Absolutely.
They'll change their moniker whenever they need to.
Comedians, yeah.
And everybody can have an awakening. We're looking at it on the national level right now. Robert F. Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard, they were Democrats. They've always been Democrats. That's what they were. And then when they got into the upper levels of the Democrat system in Washington, D.C., and found out more about how that operation worked, they decided that did not fit with their values. Their Democrats back home, they agreed with. But when it got into the upper levels, they couldn't do it. They have left the Democrat Party. I don't believe either one of them has become a Republican yet. But I think they both might be more Republican than some of the Republicans.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They just don't know it yet.
Exactly. I agree with you.
Well, and that's the moral of the story, folks, is like we've all said, and you said it just a little bit ago, Jack, it is the battle of good versus evil. That's the only way to really describe what's going on here, because how can you be so you know, if you have a heart and you have goodness in your heart, how can you do some of these atrocities that are going on in the world today? And, you know, back to why we spent the time going over this, it's education. We believe in what we are as a human race. We believe in this country. We believe in humanity. And we believe in the battle of good versus evil. So that's why we're here today, folks. We appreciate your time. We hope that you might have learned a thing or two. Red County Blue Nation is, you know, this is kind of its maiden voyage. We were supposed to live stream on Twitter, but Twitter's got us held up. So hopefully all that we'll get our verification by next week. We'll be able to live stream next week, but we'd appreciate you, you know, if you like what we're doing. There's a donate button. We have some apparel in our store. We have a lot to come here. So, Jack, appreciate you this evening.
Appreciate you. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
Thanks for inviting me.
Right on.
And vote Republican.
Vote Republican, folks. Get out there and make a difference. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks. I think I can still walk.
That's not the most comfortable chair. I guess you got us there, huh, buddy? Okay, perfect. How we do?